AEW talent that Fightful Select spoke to about CM Punk's bombshell interview with Ariel Helwani yesterday said the incident with Jack Perry backstage at Collision was less about their argument and more about Punk spreading the story around so much that it got out, which seemed to run counter to his previous complaints about rumors and gossip backstage. Alright, so here are my spark notes, basically, for what happened. So you already know about the whole glass thing. Apparently, a bunch of people had already come to Jack Perry and were like, hey, don't do that. And Jack got mad at them, and apparently he was quote-unquote cursing them out. And then Punk went up to him. Punk was like, hey, don't do it on Collision. Do it on Dynamite. And Punk said that Jack said, okay. And then the whole real glass Cry Me a River thing came out. Now, Punk's argument for, hey, don't do that, to over because Jack Perry was like, now, if I remember correctly, because I was watching this yesterday, I was. If I have the memory of a goldfish, please tell me. I was listening to this, and CM Punk was like, don't, because it was a rental car, and Punk was like, don't do that. Don't break the run, don't get a rental car and then just mess the windshield up and then bring it back, because then the rental company's not going to want to give us any cars anymore. We was like, okay, fair enough. So he did it, right? Messed up the car. And then backstage, they get into it, verbal barbs, right? It starts out verbally. And Jack, according to Punk, based off of the interview that I saw, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say that Jack instigates it. He does. And Punk reacts. And he shouldn't have done that, but that's what happened. And according to Punk, Joe was there. Joe told him to stop. Tony was there. Punk lets go of Jack. He looks over at Tony, said, this place is a joke and I quit. That's apparently the long and short of it with Punk, right? Now, this is exactly the same what happened with the whole Young Bucks and the Brawl Out thing, and he even said that I can't talk about that because of an NDA and all that sort of stuff, right? And there's a lot of different reactions to it and all and everything like that. An AEW veteran said, quote, more than anything, what the interview showed us was that this was preventable from all sides, which is fair, okay? Punk is happy AEW talent moved on, so hopefully everyone just learns from it and makes amends in the future. And then WWE talent, reactions from WWE talent Fightful spoke to were said to be, quote, all over the place. One seemed to be glad it happened, hopefully it'll blow over. WWE execs believe Punk didn't want to talk about AEW with Helwani, but knew it would come up. So it's really similar to the Brawl Out, All Out Brawl interview that he had. I don't think it was with Helwani. The point is, though, he did the same thing again that I already talked about. He comes out and he goes, hey, this is what I did. You may not like it, but this is the decision that I made, and this is why I made it. Fine. At least he's coming out and saying it. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's over now. It's done. I'm not even really concerned about Punk, to be totally honest with you. To be 100% honest with you, Punk is really not on my radar. It's Perry that I'm really concerned about. I want to see what happens with him and how he comes out of this. You know what I mean? Like, what character does he come out with this? Because Punk he's pretty much okay right now. And really, so is Perry, to be honest with you. So, at the end of the day, I'm really curious to see what type of lemonade Perry makes out of these lemons. In an ESPN post on how the WrestleMania 40 main event evolved after The Rock's return and the huge fan support for Cody Rhodes that followed, Triple H indicated that WWE was ready to audible from the start. But whether people will want to believe it or not, I think we were sort of looking at this as here's where we're going to go to get this started, and it is the opportunity of going this way or that way. On one hand, right, that sounds almost impossible because it's like you can't you can't predict how people are going to react to whatever storyline it is, you know, that you put in front of them. But on the other hand, I've played enough video games to know that it's not impossible to develop a video game based around the open-ended reactions from the player. So, as much as I want to sit here and be like, how could they have possibly, you know what I mean, and ask a bunch of different questions in regards to how we even got to this specific point, and how much of this was planned, and how much of it were they just like, quick, do that, you know? It still doesn't surprise me just because I feel like they had a lot to work with, and they had a lot of different reasons and motivations, you know? A lot of people believe that the entire reason why we're having this, in even discussion in the first place, is because of the whole real glass incident, which actually, yes, if you really think about it, yes, that actually is the reason for all this, which is crazy if you really think about it, you know? And the fact that WWE sort of like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain this. The only way I can explain this is imagine like a bunch of rocks rolling down a hill and like really tiny pebbles, like palm-sized rocks. And WWE is like catching them with their hands and they're sort of putting them in a pile off to the side. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how WWE was able to capitalize off of it the way that they did. But the fact that they did is incredibly interesting. You know? That's why I said about the whole Real Glass thing. It's like they've clearly moved on, right? Everyone's kind of like branched off and done their own thing. That's why at the end of the day, I personally am just more concerned about Jack Perry. But yeah, man, I mean, the way that the storylines have been going, I mean, they're more so specifically talking about Cody Rhodes and The Rock and that sort of stuff, which arguably is probably one of the hottest angles that WWE has done in quite some time, you know? And the whole point is that all of this is really just sort of hanging off of like, you know, a gigantic like what if. Like a what if CM Punk and Jack Perry just, you know, hashed it out and never really went anywhere. Like, what main event would we be getting at WrestleMania? I doubt it would be The Rock versus Roman, you know, but I could be wrong. So the fact that this is what we're getting, you know, I'm not complaining. Next, Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits versus the Final Testament is expected to be added to WrestleMania 40 per The Observer, and quote, as of last week, it was booked to be billed as a Philadelphia street fight. As happy as I am for the Final Testament and the Street Profits, the one thing that I want to know is this where anybody thought that is this where anybody expected this storyline to be going? Because I'll be the first one to tell you that I was not expecting for it to just be a series of repeated matches over and over again against one another, and it really just teeters back and forth, you know, and nothing really develops. You know, nothing really like happens. It's really just, you know, hey, this is the final time we're doing this, and a tag match and a one-on-one and a disqualification, you know. And I talked about this on the podcast, so I'm not going to harp on it for too long. But I would like to get my main point across, that I love both of them, and I think both factions, the Final Testament and the Pride / Street Profits and Bobby Lashley, I don't know what they're going by nowadays, but I love the both of them, and I think that both of them are doing great. My problem is that if this can't be it. It can't just be, you know, Beyblades and how they put like the metal bits on the ends of them so more sparks would come out. It can't just be this the whole time. One of them needs to branch off from this and go do something else. I don't care who. It needs to be one of them, though, because so far they're not really doing a whole lot, and the storyline, at least in my eyes, is very, very stagnant, very still water, you know, and that's not good. For the Final Testament, who just got here, AOP just came back, and he just got Paul Ellering, and you got the Street Profits over there, and BFAB just linked up with them, and they've really been doing, this has been brewing, if anything, the Street Profits BFAB whole thing has been brewing way longer than the Final Testament has. So, one of you needs to get up out of your chair and start doing something, you know, because I don't want this to just keep going on and on and on, and nothing is really progressing or developing. You know, they get a match at Mania, and that is not even remotely my issue. If it's a match at Mania and it's great and it's fun and the Final Testament, who cares who wins? But if we come back next week and it's the same thing, man, I really don't want that to happen. So hopefully after this WrestleMania match, you know, we put this to bed finally. And again, I don't care who, one of them moves on to a different storyline. Finally, the Wrestling Observer newsletter says they were told, quote, not to read into anything related to John Cena or Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 40 in relation to the main event matches. There is, quote, a mystery slot on the show, however, but it is unknown who it's for right now. I talked about this on the podcast. I just want to let you know, just to preface this, okay? Just in case. I talked about this already. But, spark notes here. I don't get why we're still doing this. I personally don't get why we're still doing the Legends thing. My argument was that you've got more, I would say the ratio between casual fans and hardcore fans at WrestleMania is bigger than the ratio than it would be at a regular, like, you know, just weekly show, right? So their argument is, well, you're here, and if you don't really know a whole lot about wrestling, fine, but you paid a ticket, so here, have Jalen Hurts, have Jason Kelsey, have John Cena, have Stone Cold, Mick Foley, have Mick Foley, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really know what the hell's going on here anyway, so might as well just jingle something in front of you. Which, I mean, you know what? Like, oh, Ed, that's insulting. What? John Cena and Stone Cold hasn't wrestled in like 50 years. And he's coming back to WrestleMania again? I love Stone Cold. Love him. Think he's a great guy. Love John. Right? Got nothing bad to say about Mick Foley or any of them. But they keep getting pulled out of their toy box over and over and over again. And they're not really doing anything. If we're just going to be tough, just come here. They're not doing anything. They're standing in the middle of the ring, right? The little 12-year-old who has them is posing them in different poses, and the crowd is cheering. That's pretty much it, you know. I hope they don't get involved in a match. I hope they don't get into a match. Okay? I don't want to see it. I don't really, you know, it's not going to be any skin off my nose if Stone Cold comes out and then is like, hey, great show, and then leaves, you know. I personally feel like we can do without it, and I don't know how long it's going to be before this concept itself is removed entirely. But then again, I mean, well, no, I was going to say they do it in other sports, but in fairness, from the sports that I've seen, which is mainly just basketball and football, the only person that in basketball, the only person that they will just not let go into the ground and collect worms is Kobe Bryant. They will not let that man rest. They are constantly bringing him up with this thing and this record and all this. And listen, listen, I don't even know, how do I say this? I have no allegiance. I have no, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not involved in that. It is just something that me and my older brother have observed. Football, so far, I haven't really seen anything. 9 times out of 10, all they'll do is be like, hey, Jordan Love throws the ball like Brett Favre, and, oh, do you remember that DeMar Hamlin thing? That's pretty much it. Other than that, they don't really, like, yell at you about anything. You know, WWE is the only one who's like, hey, you remember how old that guy is? That's pretty much it. They don't need to do it anymore, and I wish they would stop. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. What do we talk about? All right, so CM Punk basically told Ariel what was up. And this is, I don't see any differences between this interview and the All Out Brawl interview. Because again, he did the same thing. Hey, this is what I did. Nobody likes it. I don't really like it either. But this is what I did, which I completely respect. You don't have to like it, but he was honest. That's all I'm asking for at the end of the day. Shoot me, you know? Okay, so the main event evolved after The Rock's return. Huge fan support by Cody that followed. Triple H said he was ready. WWE was ready to audible from the start, which I understand, right? But man, it's real life. It's not like a video game where you can code everything. If something's wrong, you just go back into the code. Beep, beep, bop. You're pretty much good to go. Real life, you know, if nobody likes it, you have to scrap it, right? And you got to do something else, you know. And these are like real people. You can't just delete him, you know. Change his hair color, his height, his build, you know. So that's what's really fascinating to me about this entire situation is the fact that something so complex and dynamic and real, right, and tangible, at the same time as yet being spoken about as if it's so malleable and controllable at the same time. It just, me personally, it just feels weird in my brain because it's like so much of this maybe wouldn't even have happened, which is another mind-boggling thing of the fact that if Perry had not given Punk so much shit about the glass situation, would we even be having it, which is crazy to think. Because the reason why I'm even sitting here and making this entire sentence out of my mouth right now is because of the whole situation. Well, yeah, we'll say more or less. I don't want to say 100 million, 10 million. I would say like 90%, right? 90-10, right? So I just think it's interesting that we're here because of that. And WWE, according to Triple H, was like, well, we didn't really know what was going to happen, but we kind of like rolled with the punches, which is crazy to me, you know? It's just, it's very fascinating. I personally believe that how WWE managed to grab hold of this and then like steer it the way that they've been steering, incredibly fascinating. So John Cena and Stone Cold might be there, might be at WrestleMania 40. If they are, sure, fine, great. Why am I going to get upset? If they aren't there, even better. More time for more wrestling and matches and, you know, WrestleMania. But again, casual fans, got to appeal to them. Completely understand. Lashley and the Street Profits versus the Final Testament is expected to be out of WrestleMania. It is, at the time of this recording, it is out of WrestleMania 40. It is a Philadelphia street fight. I'm sure the match is going to be great. For the love of God, please have one of them, both of them. I don't care, okay? Please don't let this just keep going on. That's all I'm asking for. Folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully everybody has a wonderful tonight and a wonderful tomorrow. And as always, big hugs. Big hugs all around.